Reglobalization Reglobalization was, in a sense, history rhyming, a repeat of the 1870 to 1914 period, just as the rapid productivity growth of the 30 golden years was a repeat of the economic El Dorado, so it appeared from 1870 to 1914. Once again, a global hegemon committed to free trade and able to make its desires stick by and large, primarily because it was a rich and powerful nation and society that others wanted to emulate, but also because access to its markets and playing by its rules promised significant gains. Plus a transportation revolution, containerization. Plus the building of lots and lots of institutions, the United Nations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank to provide development aid, the United Nations to keep the peace, the IMF to help countries that got into some kind of monetary or financial trouble get out of it, with other countries willing to, the IMF in the form of other countries in the form of IMF willing to give it substantial loans so that it didn't have to adjust suddenly but could adjust gradually. There was supposed to be a World Trade Organization, but it was not formed. Instead, there was a general agreement on tariffs and trade led by the United States, which led over generations to 8 rounds of reductions in tariffs until they were almost nothing. And in Europe, in Western Europe, where every 50 years since the -100s, an army had crossed the Rhine River bent on wreaking havoc with fire and sword, France and Germany, along with Italy, Belgium, and Holland, decided that they were going to form a European coal and steel community to so interlink their economies that going to war would become next to impossible. And the European coal and steel community grew to be the European Community, the European Economic Community, and then the European Community, and then the European Union. And people looked at it and saw that it was good, except possibly for Spain and Germany in the decade after 2008. But certainly the current economic travails of post-Brexit Britain strongly suggest that you're much better inside that tent than outside. By 1975, world trade was back to its 1914 peak of 25% of GDP, and we had a sharp campaign of virtuous circle of division of labor intensification. This was one of the big things that fueled the 30 glorious years, that made productivity growth so rapid, not just in the global north, but in those parts of the global south that decided to take advantage of greatly expanding world trade as well, and managed to avoid getting trapped in the Prebisch Singer where exporting nothing other than primary products that are in elastic supply and inelastic demand. And continued convergence. Reglobalization after World War II, in the global south, it meant doubling down on resource-dependent exports. And there was the Prebisch Singer hypothesis that tropical, largely primary products face inelastic demand, and yet, in a time of economic growth, face elastic supply. You can use biotechnology in lots of other places where it had not hitherto been used before. Elastic supply and inelastic demand. Elastic supply and inelastic demand. What they mean is that prices go down as productivity goes up, and the overwhelming benefits of all of the increases in global south productivity went to the global north. It also meant that in the global north, getting and keeping the Fordist factories running was the easiest key to prosperity. The frown curve. There is very little wealth to be gained at the start of the value chain with the raw materials and the resources. There is also relatively little wealth to be gained at the end of the value chain with marketing and distribution because you face competition, Where there is value to be gained is with the manufacturing process, and the engineers who set it up, and the skilled workers who manage to apply. And that means, at least if your gender and ethnicity got you blue and white collar factory related jobs in the global north, that meant relatively equitable and relatively fast growth as well in the global north. But that, of course, was only in regions and sectors that did not see the reverse destruction side of the creative destruction coin flip.